This is we are started and recorded.
From the work session?
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thanks, sir. I did.
Yeah.
Every time I try to speak it. Let's smack my knee on that. I got it. Shall we begin? Yeah, we're ready. Okay. So does everyone have a
roll call?
Yes, roll call. Okay. Thank you, boss.
You're welcome.
And shall I begin?
Yeah, you run.
So. So I have you, I have me, I have Ann, who just came in. Carrie's here.
Say the names for Erin so she can write everything down and take in the minutes.
Ann Barrington is here. Terry Falkenrath is here. Robert Fox is here. Clark Hotelling is here. Steve Rosika is here. Now Susan Sunderman.
Not gonna make it.
Okay,
Yes.
so is she the woman who came to the last meeting and introduced herself as being part of another commission?
No.
No,
No.
that was
Jamie.
Yes. Yeah.
Jamie. Okay, I did not catch her name. So I wanted to mention that her name does not appear in the minutes anywhere, and I didn't know whether that was something that you normally track. What was her last name again?
Hasselmeyer.
Hasselmeyer?
Yeah, I'm not sure the spelling.
Okay.
We get her mail now.
I can add her to the minutes, but she wasn't a part of the
The discussion.
right,
Correct.
so,
Okay,
but she was kind of just
She was.
discussing something outside of the scope of.
so
the meeting.
as kind of a visitor rather than a
Right,
member,
Correct.
she wouldn't be
Maybe.
reported.
I'd be happy to let her do it.
Well, I didn't know if that was official, if she was going to continue.
Doesn't need to be. Her comments were just not, they weren't related to the tax.
Okay, so Susan,
About her commission and what they did.
yeah, so back to the roll call. Susan is not here. Okay. Right,
And she was here at the last meeting.
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
So I looked at the agenda that was online, but I don't think I brought a copy of it. But I think the first thing that we were going to do was to quickly review the working session that we had on July 13th.
First would be minute approvals
Yeah.
Yes, thank
that
you.
you approved, and we have not yet, you have not yet approved the December minutes because they were tabled. So we need to approve the December minutes as well as the June 15 minutes.
Okay,
I motion to approve the December minutes. I guess, should we do these separately?
Yes.
Yeah.
They
that's what I
can be
thought.
done separately. And then so you would call for a second. So you would say motion, and Carrie just made the motion. So then you would call for a
a
second.
second.
And then it would be all in favor.
Aye.
Any opposed? Boom, minutes are approved. There we
Okay,
go. That's how it
that's how it
that's how it
works.
knocks down. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So the minutes from July 13th.
No,
June
June.
June
June
15th.
June 15th.
Yep.
Oh,
I don't know if I've seen those.
They were sent out today.
I sent them out again today.
I don't.
Here's another copy.
Here's a copy.
There we go.
That's these, that's.
Yes, that's
what
what
I'm
I said. Okay, yes.
I won't see things on the same day. Just
Okay.
Okay.
I'll try to remember to get those out a couple of days in advance. I don't want to do it weeks in advance because then emails get lost in people's email chains and never seen. So
Okay, do we have a motion to approve these?
so
Okay, second,
Second.
all in favor of accepting these? Aye. Okay. Before we get into the new stuff, there was something at the last meeting that was tabled. And it was the very first item, parking on Valley. I don't recall if if someone took that on to look into it.
I did, so
okay.
we'll reach back out to the residents on that. It was tabled due to we wanted to have a petition signed by all the residents.
Feedback,
And I
uh-huh.
have not yet received
Okay,
it. All right, so I will follow up on that again.
And you're
okay.
spearheading the petition and getting everyone to
No,
sign
I
it.
don't spearhead a petition. I don't make a petition or anything. The residents have to make their own for what they want and then have the people that on the street want to sign it, and then that would get back to me. And then
And you'll remind them to do it, basically.
I'll send another email.
Okay. Great. So if I could, back to the meeting that we had on July 13th.
Can I just ask,
Yeah.
it seems like we have visitors that
Yes,
come in sometimes. Do they need to stay for the whole meeting, or is it something? Some of the other commissions have visitor comments up front, so they can make their comments and then stay or leave if they don't want to stay for the whole thing. So it's just a
no, that's a great point.
question. I mean, I see some people sitting here. I'd hate for you to have to sit through the whole meeting if you have some comments you just like to make at the beginning of the meeting, but.
So is that a guideline that we established for this commission, or do we just kind of do that ad hoc by each?
There's no guideline for that. If you want
Okay.
to let, yes, speak.
I certainly don't object to that.
Makes sense.
Anybody else have a concern? All right, let us invite our first guest to,
Hi,
if
I'm
you would
Ellen
introduce
Newman.
yourself and your address.
I'm Ellen Newman. I live at 226 North Elm. Here, so if you are traveling down Elm for the Kirkham, I live on the right hand side.
Between the train tracks and
Right.
Kirkham.
And I believe my neighbor was here last time, so we're just gonna be probably tag teaming you for a while to continue to ask
Uh-huh.
that to please consider making this part of Elm from here to the end of the street into one lane instead of two lanes.
Back to
Plus, just when I'm reading what's gonna go on in Brentwood and the amount of traffic that I assume will be heading to a $400 million Manchester Road. You know, a big thing, and I think a lot of people are gonna go there, way to go, but I am worried even more so about what's gonna happen between here and the bottom of the street. Basically what we have, it's not a matter of traffic being backed up on, unless it's a weird day. It is the speed of which to try to make a right into my driveways. I head down the hill. I've had teenage kids trying to learn to drive, trying to get out of my driveway. It would just be a really beautiful thing if maybe we could put a median in it, like Lockwood, make it more of a residential, a pretty street instead of basically a drag racing. You know, that's what's happening. is People are racing quickly and not going 35. I can assure you, I have this. Even the buses, they're done. They're out. They're just booking it to get home, you know, and I get it. But when they're behind you and you're trying to slow up to go into your driveway and they honk at you, I would just say, we're just hoping everybody will consider this part of Webster slowing it down a little bit.
Okay.
So we'll probably be here for every meeting until the end of time, because one of us we're just decided. There's not a lot of us, but I think it would help anybody that drives on down.
I think they've been doing that in the city, when we did it on Hampton, and there was before ones the two, and I know they did it on Morgan Ford for a stretch a couple of years ago too.
And did they add bike lanes at the same time? So what I've been told is what's in front of my house is a bike lane. It's not marked a bike lane. Unfortunately, it's too narrow to park, so people park on the sidewalk. And we've had at AT&T, lots of people park on my sidewalk. If they could mark it a bike lane, that would save me not being, you know, I feel like I'm an asshole all the time walking out there going, please don't park on my sidewalk. I mean, they park nearly on my grass. There's just not enough room there. I just want it to be designated either as parking or biking. I don't really care which, I don't care if they park. And that would maybe slow people down too.
Have you been flipped off yet trying to turn into your driveway like I have on Elm?
It's really just like the honking.
Yeah.
It's the honking that, and also it's just alarming to me, and especially I've had 4 children and I can hear the trucks breaking to try to let them in our driveway, so.
Yeah.
It's a safety issue, but I have to say, I think it's also just kind of ugly. I mean, between here and bottom Kirkham, it's Manchester Road kind of a thing going on to
Right.
me, you know, so. We're just all hoping and praying, maybe you guys would contemplate.
Well, is there, let me ask
I'll do whatever I gotta
Captain
do.
Perks here. Is there a requirement that people have some kind of formal letter or petition or anything like that in order to ask us to work, to move on this question?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so perhaps you and your neighbors aren't aware.
I'll do whatever I need
It
to.
would
I'm
be
here to
it would
learn.
be the residents that are affected, which
Right.
on that stretch of Elm is 4 houses.
And we'll team up with you on my
It's not-
stretch of
it-
Elm.
Yeah, it's not a lot of us.
Yeah, it's
I'll
about
give you
4
that.
houses.
It's,
Well,
well,
no, I just want to
plus
make
this
sure
guy.
that we're not, that you don't come and have your say and leave, and we really don't have anything formal
right.
in the form of a
Right.
request.
I'll do whatever. I just am not educated into how to proceed, whatever it is, I'll do.
I'm this far ahead of you.
Yeah, yeah.
Why do we, I mean, if we've got so many requests coming in on the same street all the time and it's been constant, and it's been an issue and it's been political for 25 years,
So
30
this
years.
is 2 in a row.
Right, I
Yeah.
mean, then that's why I'm here is
Mhm.
Elm and your stretch included. I'm between Swan and here, so. But so why can't we go ahead and make changes and ask for all the safety measures and the striping and the people walkways and everything we need without having to go, like, it means we have to go out and get everyone to sign a
If I have to
petition
go
and.
door to door, we're talking about 4 doors, and everybody wants it to happen. The neighbors 2 doors after me have little kids.
Yeah.
That were,
But I mean,
It's
to
just-
me, it seems like it's a whole Webster thing too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't live on that stretch. I don't like it.
yeah,
Right.
it's
I
not.
don't think it's appropriate.
Mm-mm.
I think it was built because they were gonna have 4 lanes for out,
Right.
whatever. I don't know why it was built like
Well, I
that.
think originally it
think-
was to handle it all the way up to 44, but
Mhm.
these guys all stopped it and then.
And I think your
My-
question is more of what is the purpose of the commission? Are we proactive
Right,
or are we reactive?
it needs to
Sure.
be done, so why can't we just do it? There's money, there's motivation.
I
What do
will
we have to do
plant
to-
the trees in the median with a shovel if I have to, whatever I have. to
And I'm not objecting, excuse me, I don't object to that. I think that's a great idea. The thing that concerns me is that if we have no letter or no petition, one person comes in and makes a claim. Now, who's gonna do the homework?
Right.
To talk to the other neighbors, to
Okay.
figure out if it's a real problem. So I'm suggesting that you could save yourself and us some
Absolutely.
effort. If you could get a petition for us, and then we will take it from there.
So do I construct this petition like my way, or is there a form?
No,
You're
So I
no,
can just do
just
this.
a letter.
Just
And-
a
and-
letter with the signatures from the residents that are affected, that are wanting to do this, and
Yes.
recommendations on what you're asking for.
Great. And so how do I bring it here? To you?
Email it to me, and then I will forward that to the traffic commission, and then they'll put it
We'll
on an
talk about
agenda. And then it'll go from there.
And the agenda is published, so if you and your neighbors want to keep an eye on that. The agenda for this meeting, when it comes up, you're all welcome to come.
Okay, because the only way I know about this is like I'm friends with you guys on like
Yeah.
Instagram or whatever the hell it is. I don't even know what it is. It's one of those things. And I'm like, oh, there it is. I'm going because my next neighbor's like, I can't go to the next one. So how do I find
Yeah.
out about that agenda?
So where is the agenda posted?
It's on our webpage, westergrowth.org,
Under commission.
under commissions, and then you go down to the TAC, Traffic Advisory Commission, and then our meetings and minutes and all this stuff are posted there.
All right,
Okay,
it's gonna happen. All right, thanks.
There we go.
thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for hearing me. For
Of course, of course.
And let me introduce our other guest, Ron Zinger.
Having heard this, I came with a letter,
Oh.
I can leave you a copy of. And I would say that I'm not sure about a petition. I've not heard that it was required.
I don't know that it is
I
required.
heard him say that.
It's not required, it's preferred,
Third,
particularly when it to bring to the commission. So when an issue is brought up, like let's say parking or something on a street, but it's only one person or two people, but the remainder of people on that street don't have an issue with that, they may not sign the petition. And so I need to be able to bring that information to the Traffic Advisory Commission. Because if we're going to look at changing something, it's only going to meet the needs of one person versus the entirety as a whole of the community or on that street that's affected.
My hesitation is going up as a stranger and ringing someone's doorbell, even if they're home, getting them to come to the door to sign a petition, could be problematic.
You could send a letter to them.
Strap a letter in the
Or you could
mailbox.
press a letter.
Can we hear him out without
Yeah.
having, I mean, we'd like to
Yeah.
read the letter.
Well, I was gonna leave you with a copy
Yeah,
of that. And then if you, there was a time when the commission would contact people. Is that not there anymore?
Not that I've never heard of that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that people that would be involved, that would be directly impacted. They would send, the city would send letters to them and get responses.
I think that was if the city was planning on doing something.
Right.
The city would plan
Then
to-
they would send the letters to the people. that would be Affected, but if you want something done, then you, the same thing, you got.
I'm not gonna take any more of your time.
Right.
I will leave this with you if you don't mind, and you can copy it and share it or whatever you do with that.
So Ron, if I could ask a question,
Yeah,
the issue that you're talking about does it affect like a lot of people or people nearby? So here's my question.
well,
If I were to go and knock on doors and talk to you, the neighbors, who would I wouldn't know who to knock.
well, I've named the streets that have difficulty getting out onto Rock.
Okay,
And so if I were going together petitions, I would go up Bullshit Terrace and I would go up, what's the name of the other street? Here, Furwood, up Rockville. Because they have a hard time getting out onto Rockville.
Okay.
Their vision is very much obscured. And if this traffic on Rockville were coming to a stop before proceeding towards this street, it would make it much easier for them to get out. Like I said, I'm hesitant to go toward the door gathering petitions from people that I don't know and they don't know me.
okay.
Can we review his letter?
Oh,
and add
yes,
the
by all
minutes?
means, yes.
And there's no rush on it. So
For next-
here,
Yeah,
I'll just leave this with you if I might.
Yeah, please.
And
thanks.
I may stay for part of the meeting if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah.
When-
Absolutely.
I want to see how it turns out.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I passed out, thank you. I passed out a copy of the minutes from the meeting that Clark and Steve and I had in July. But rather than wait for everyone to talk about it, let me just quickly run through what we did. So we had proposals for this new ordinance from Terry, from Steve, and from myself. And we read through those, and what we discovered was that the elements, the pieces of this were similar in all three of them. So rather than say, oh, we're gonna pick this one, we said, well, why don't we just pick the elements of these three proposals that made sense to us? And so what I did in the rest of this summary is to list the elements that we discussed. So there are two under the having to do with safety. There were two having to do with fairness, and there were two having to do with signage, and then one having to do with how this would be implemented. So what I'd like to do first of all is take a quick look at those, and then what I created here was a ballot, so I can just pass these. And it'd be very helpful if I could get a couple of copies.
Sure.
For I have 3, and I think I probably need 4 more. And there's printing on both sides.
Thank
So once we've discussed
welcome.
these,
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good.
I forgot to check.
so please read through these, and then we can discuss them and then vote.
Can I back up with a
Yeah.
clarification?
We don't vote on minutes from a meeting.
No, it's not a
Working
mi-
session.
It's a ballot.
This would be our internal guidelines for for parking requests. Is that, I mean, am I phrasing that right? Because you said ordinance, but we're not looking to create any ordinance,
I
correct?
thought, what I remember from the discussion was that we were going to have to ask the city council to dissolve the previous ordinances. They were all done as ordinances. Do I recall that correctly?
Correct. So all of the areas and concern that you're concerning about, that the parking around the high school and that stuff, each one of those sections on, there's an ordinance that has been passed for that particular section, for that parking hours or whatever restrictions, limitations, whatnot.
Right.
And so every one of those ordinances would have to then be rescinded and for a new ordinance then to be put in place,
Right,
or they can be modified.
right. But I think the ordinance that we would put in place would be no parking here, parking here. This is a set of guidelines on how we are wanting to review and approve
Well,
parking requests.
I think the safety requirements would be in the ordinance.
Okay,
And I think the process for how that ordinance is, goes into effect would also be
in the
defined
ordinance.
in the ordinance. Now, I may be wrong on this, and if we have, one of the attorneys for the city could maybe help us understand how to word an ordinance, how it should be written.
You wouldn't write the ordinance.
Okay,
The ordinance would be written by the city. You would get put the recommendations to the council, and then it would be,
thank you.
it would be drafted up that this would be the way that the ordinance, and we would write that.
Got it.
You wouldn't write.
Okay, oh, thank you, that's helpful. Yeah,
If I may, just for a quick second, I think that the best thing to do would be to devise your policies and procedures as a board itself. And then within those policies and procedures, determine the best course of action. Like, for instance, I think what Ron just did, and I forget the name of the other woman that already presented before you, whether the Traffic Advisory Commission as a commission requires or would want a petition in order to effectuate or to even discuss or look at any changes. And that way it can be revised and amended as needed as times change, rather than having to go through the ordinance process. It would merely just be on the basis of what the commission desires and what the commission wants. When you look at the ordinance itself, formulating or developing the Traffic Advisory Commission, there are no rules or regulations really laid out other than that you must meet, that you must elect a chair and vice chair. Everything else will be left to your discretion as a board and commission with your internal policies and procedures.
okay, thank you.
Can I ask then,
Yeah.
what would parallel? So like, when I started this commission, it was you went through what the parameters are for stop signs, speed. In my mind, this should parallel that. So wherever the ordinance and the policies blend together, my goal was that they go parallel. So that the language is the same.
Correct.
Okay.
And when I explained all that, when the first
Yeah.
time, that all comes from the MUTCD, Manual Uniform Traffic Control Devices.
Okay.
So there's set out guidelines put out that say that, this many cars have to go through an intersection.
Yeah.
For time for a stop sign to be warranted. This many,
Yeah.
street lists are set out that you have to have this width of the street for a parking lane versus a.
Yeah.
so that's a guidance document that everybody refers to make decisions. So that's what I was assuming we were drafting
Yeah.
here is our internal guidance that we would refer to. That way it's transparent to make decisions.
Right.
And then, I guess this is the way I understood it. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Then as far as these so as new requests come in, we use our guideline documents. But as far as existing ordinances, we can then use our internal approved internal guidelines and review even past ordinances against those to start to say, do these still make sense in light of the way we're doing things now? Is that, okay.
Correct.
But we'd have to go through and look at them almost one by one by one.
One by one.
Right.
Okay, so,
That's why I'm asking, because I was like, I am
no,
confused.
I'm glad, because the procedure wasn't clear to me either. All right, so instead of having an ordinance for this, we are going to create a policy about how we will review these going forward.
Correct.
So that's
That
a
would be-
new policy.
It'd be your guidelines as a board. how you're going to take a look at when issues are brought to the TAC or the current issues like the parking around the high school. How are you then going to look what's your guidelines when you look at like, the 300 block of street X, right? And then you're going to take a look at all that and go, well, here's what we're setting for. Does it meet or does it not meet? And we can move forward from there type things.
Okay, that's good for the things that say that those initials again for me.
MUTC.
MUTCD. So anything that fits under that topic, we can refer to that.
Everything is in there.
But your
Everything about traffic and parking and everything,
Okay.
regulatory signs, everything is set forth in there with guidance on it.
Okay, so Carrie, one of your suggestions was that we decide how wide a street can, with a given width of street, how much parking can we allow? Is that in that document?
Yeah.
Okay, so
But,
this is
you know, the width of a driving lane, the width of a parking lane, all that is in there.
is in there.
Yes,
But so it would be up to us to decide what are going to be our guidelines. And you stated them. We don't have to restate them again here unless you know them off the top of your head.
I think I was using, so MUTCD has minimum widths of driving lanes, minimum widths of parking lanes.
Okay,
Basically, I was putting those two together. One,
Correct.
you know, to try to give us what our minimum width would be. Oh, but I think one point I wanted to make though, this will be a little bit of homework, is try to find out the minimum width of a fire, an emergency service vehicle and a trash vehicle, because those are obviously bigger than everything's usually kind of based on cars and trucks.
minimum width for
Yeah.
for emergency vehicles.
Yes, so we would check with Webster Groves Police and Fire, more than police probably, but,
Yeah.
And then
And
also
for
waste management.
Waste management.
And I'm assuming they're, I don't know, widest truck, 8 to 10 feet, but just to make sure that whatever we decide is our minimum captures that width of a vehicle trying to get down the street. Because
Okay.
I think that came up in our last conversation with the
So if-
narrow streets.
So if what's published in the MUTCD meets that, then we're fine. But if for whatever reason, our emergency vehicles or trash vehicles are bigger, then we're gonna have to modify that for our area.
We would set our own minimum.
Okay.
is my assumption.
Okay, so that refers to these first two here, having to do with street width. And the MUTCD does cover parking as it relates to fire hydrants and street corners and driveways and all that kind of stuff. That's in there. Okay,
I mean, it's guidelines, it's
It's
recommendations.
recommendations.
yes, okay. So the next section had to do with fairness. So if you would, please take a look at that. Any questions having to do with that point? On the second
And
point,
looking at the bullets.
yeah,
My only concern is this is gonna be hard to enact and enforce. And I think we'll get pushback from the city. And when we're referring to MUTCD, it will require a new ordinance in the city to designate a paint color, because there's no paint color designated beyond, the
So-
standards.
so one of the things that I,
Permit parking type stuff, which then the city would have to incur that, have people who would then have to issue. the-
Yeah, I think-
the Permit parking.
This is almost more by, honest, what was the word I'm looking for? Just be,
yeah,
on your
Honor system?
on your honor,
On
the
your honor
honor
system?
system, yeah.
so,
Completely unenforceable.
Yes, it is unenforceable,
well, let's be honest.
right?
We don't have, I don't believe, I should say, we have a police force that's gonna be going around and looking at where everyone parks and whether they're in this
Right.
color or that color. I think that's kind,
We do have a parking enforcement and we do parking enforcement Monday through Friday.
okay,
So, and we do enforce the parking in our business districts particularly, but all the parking around the city. And we have,
Well-
that's one of our officers' full-time jobs.
I agree. But let me just say that we don't have stickers on the cars that say resident
We
or.
do have resident parking only passes, et cetera.
Oh, we do?
Yes, we
Stickers?
Some places.
Pancakes.
And hang tags
Yeah.
In some areas.
in some areas.
Yeah, I mean, they're available for residents who live on resident only.
In the
Yeah, I
areas
saw
that have been
resident only.
designated for resident only parking in those certain areas where the ordinance has been passed and there's a resident only parking. Correct.
But we don't have them for students. We could get them. But we don't have parking, if you're gonna park in the orange. As a student, you're gonna need a student orange, an orange hang tag.
So the competing factions that we're talking about are residents. When you say commuters, you're talking about people who are coming here and
Well,
working in
The
Webster.
reason I use the word commuters is that
Commuters.
what brought this up originally was high school students.
Yeah, okay, this is coming out of
But
that.
remember that there are other places in Webster Groves where a business or institution is encroaching, the parking is encroaching into a neighborhood.
Right.
So I tried to make it more generic by saying we had those who live here and those who drive here. So
Mhm.
residents and commuters, that was my thinking.
Okay.
Um,
Well, do we have an issue that people have brought up with workers coming and parking downtown near businesses when they're not supposed to?
I don't know,
or-
it's just workers, but I mean, I did a parking study for Olive and Oaks when they reopened, and that was a big deal about where patrons were gonna park when they come to Olive and Oak.
Right.
Because, you're a block away from residential area.
and-
So, and I think that comes up frequently for places like Old Webster Commercial District, probably Old Orchard to some degree. I'm not as, that one doesn't,
Old Orchard, not as much, but Old Webster for sure. And
Yeah.
We have had historically issues with workers where they park and then their employers are telling them to park off in the neighborhoods because they don't want the parking right by the
Weekend.
business.
Take up
taken
all the
Takes away from
spots.
their
by
business.
employees, and so there has been some issue. It's not been really prevalent lately, but there has been issues with that.
So my thinking again was that if a citizen found that their street was being parked up by people for whatever reason, they could come to us, we could designate that as a shared parking area.
Mhm.
And then we would put up the two colors as a way of helping, because how else are we gonna be sure that
Right.
we don't have non-residents parking the street for?
I
So
think
is there a better solution than the parking colors? Because it's such a good idea, but if we have to do an ordinance for a new paint color versus.
No,
stickers
no,
in the car-
you don't, there doesn't have to be a pink color.
Oh, okay,
That's only if the people who are asking for this feel strongly enough that they want to paint the street. If they're willing to go with just the signs on either side of the street, this side for consumer or for commuters and this side for residents, if they're happy with that, that's all it's needed.
then again, you would then still have to issue parking passes to the cars to be hanging, so that way all the
Yeah.
residents would be able to park on the painted side, which I don't think is a sound idea to be painting the streets colors.
As a philosophical question, I don't know why people think that they own the spot on a city street, to tell you the truth.
In
I
front of
live
their
near
house.
Olive and Oak, and I don't care if restaurant people park on my street. I'm happy. It makes it a thriving community.
And I agree with you. I think the people who have students filling their street day in and day out, every day of the year, are struggling with that.
I wonder if we can separate it then, because I'm having confusion with the same thing, right? If we need to separate the student issue from everybody
I was
else.
just gonna recommend that you concentrate on one issue first versus the second, because you've got a
Yeah.
business district issue. You're talking with a residential issue for the student.
well, I think is what, though, we're trying to lay out our guidelines.
Correct.
So this would both fall under. But I think we have an existing system where we can give people residential parking or not. And that, I mean, I think that system works. It's just that currently we need to
Well, okay, so I think
review it.
the question I think for me is how, if we're not going to enforce this, if it's an honor system, I'm with you all the way. At some point, somebody's gonna say, how is this being enforced?
Well, our current system is enforced. Our current system has residential parking and it's enforced. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Correct,
So
correct.
I think,
So you are currently giving tickets to students who park in a resident-only street?
Can't say students. We are currently issuing citations to vehicles that are illegally parked in a residential only area without a resident tag. Don't know.
Basically, it's permit part.
It's permit parking, correct?
It's permanent.
So if you have a permit and you're a resident, you can have a permit. If you don't have a permit, then you're a non-resident.
Right.
And then you're,
The difference is the residents of those streets or those designated areas are the ones that are issued those permits.
Right.
People that may live 4 streets over that aren't designated in that spot cannot get a permit to park in that spot.
So you already have a good system.
Right.
And the
For
residents
those
aren't,
residentially designated parking only areas.
and the residents who need those have skinny old school driveways with not enough space for their own cars. Is that really why?
Oh,
sorry.
are you okay?
Yeah, just for some, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, well,
Is
believe
it
so.
cheaper? Probably.
believe so.
Oh, we did just get,
yeah, he just got paged out.
yeah, he did.
So I think what's being suggested then is that,
I like that. I like that. You baby on the way.
You-
oh.
That's,
dear.
I know, we're just hope, as I,
That's
that's
a
what I'm gonna hope.
happy one.
I wanna hope that.
Better than
Everything else,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Lots of
So,
pain and.
so what I hear is being suggested then is that there would be one side of the street designated for residents, one side of the street designated for commuters. And we would need to come up with a commuter permit and a resident permit.
No,
you would think you would
no.
need a commuter permit, you would just need the resident. permit.
Right.
Yeah, if the street had parking on both sides,
Yeah.
and one side was resident only, we would signage that.
Oh,
says
only the
resident
one
only.
side.
Yes, and then the
The
other
other
side is
one's
either open for
Oh.
parking or no parking at all, or restricted parking or
Now, what
whatnot.
problems did that solve? Because it sounds smart to me.
I think that's the existing,
It's
that's the
it's
existing,
been in for years. and
Yeah.
Well,
it's
that's
set
the
in-
one that we have.
Is the problem perceived that the resident only parking is not enough around high school and that more parking is encroaching into farther streets?
Right.
Correct.
Swan or.
I think what's happening is some of the streets have gotten themselves resident only on one side and
both
then
sides.
no parking on the other, or somehow where they completely restricted their street. Where then streets a little further out
Are
are
getting-
bearing the
It just
brunt,
keeps
right?
pushing.
And every individual kid's driving their own car,
Right.
probably.
So I think the whole idea that there would be open, free on one side and permit on the other is something we kicked around as a, hey, how about we start looking at streets for this opportunity? But,
Well, I absolutely, I mean, the best solution is the minimalist solution.
Right.
And so if we only marked one side resident only and the other side was open, we would have to see how that goes.
Right. but I think we have to decide that on a street by street basis.
Oh, yes, yeah, absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
So can I make this a suggestion here for you? I'm a couple with Councilperson Franklin's advice. First thing is to set your guidelines.
Uh-huh.
And then I think you should, you have 2 separate issues here. I think you should start with the original problem that you all did, which was the high school parking.
Mhm.
And tackle that street by street as it is, because that's gonna be an enormous task itself, right? There are a ton of ordinances
Huge.
passed on various streets around that high school.
Right.
And each one of those would have to be tackled. And then
Mm.
if you chose to go into the commercial districts, which is going to bring in a different thing, because now you have to meet with the business districts, those associations, and to be honest with you, we don't have all the complaints coming in the business districts that
Well,
much.
exactly, then
Leave
maybe
it.
there's no point in doing it.
Right,
Yeah.
so
Okay,
primarily our complaints that come in are the high school parking when the high school is in session.
Oh, we'll be doing that soon then.
Next week, it all starts over. again.
And do you get a lot of safety complaints on different streets or not throughout?
What defines safety complaint?
Like parents calling, worrying about people speeding on their street and blowing stop
We get them,
signs?
we get them.
So that's kind of a-
Generally, we see an influx of those at the start of the school year, but
Yeah.
then after the couple, 3-4 weeks fade by, unless something else comes up, they kind of.
Yeah.
They lower, but we do get them.
Because I think there's excitement and momentum to make our city more walkable and environmentally friendly, and we all love our community and want to do that. So can we pepper that kind of work in with?
absolutely, that's
With
what
this
we're
other
here,
work?
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to kind of quickly draft a sentence or two
Okay.
that says that, this is the ballot that I drafted, and there's room on the back for you to add. Yep, you know, pass those around. Yeah. Wonder. Okay.
I'll just look at it
Oh, yeah.
and then hand it back.
Okay, this has been very helpful. Thank you for going through this.
Yes.
Okay. The rules about, okay, the rules about signage. That we would draft some set of standards. It sounds like the MUTCD
has
covers that.
laid out for you.
Mhm.
So we'll just snag theirs. We don't want to
Right.
reinvent any
And
wheels.
to be honest with you, we recommend that. We
Oh,
highly
sure.
recommend MUTCD guidelines for everything because this has been studied. The engineers have set this out. They have the footage for, how far for signs and absolutely.
Okay. The next bullet is kind of one that you might be interested in. Purchase, location, installation of signage defining the parking areas will be the responsibility of the city, of the police department and public works.
So not the police department, but public works.
Public
So
works.
once, if you were to come up with an issue, everything was presented, an ordinance was presented to the council. The council then approved the ordinance to go into place. Then the city of Webster, the Public Works Department would be responsible then for once everything is signed off on and approved, then they would erect the signage that is necessary.
Okay. And then the last statement I made was that rather, we can't bring the entire city into compliance on one day. Rather, what we would suggest is that people, citizens or the department could come to us with a section that they want to see updated, and we could then rule on it. And so it would be implemented over time.
Which is what we're doing now.
What we
Right.
talked
Yeah,
about.
Which is,
Yeah.
kind of the streets surrounding the high school. those
Exactly.
Particular areas there. I think that's where you would want to start first.
So, Ann, do you have thoughts about how I see you're trying to word it.
I need workshopping help on wording things.
Here's another suggestion for you. This doesn't have to be done tonight.
I
Right?
was
So
gonna
when we're
say.
done, what we do is then you would put a workshop together now to come out with your guidelines, your policies on what you want to put in place when an issue is presented to you, then you have your set guidelines out. And you're probably, okay, this is how we're going to compare everything now and moving forward. So,
So,
another suggestion is just, I don't want to volunteer, but you do have a traffic engineer on your board.
You are invaluable.
so my hope was that we could at least have the skeleton of this tonight. That's why I brought the
But it
ballot.
sounds like we're talking about two different things again. I mean, to me.
Well,
One is, how do we address things that come in?
Correct,
This is
Yeah.
specific about parking
correct.
suggestions.
Right.
So these are, I mean,
Well, what I meant by that, Clark, was that
Yeah.
I wanted to address the issue that has been presented to us, which is parking. And I wanted to address it by drafting what are going to be our policies and procedures for this going forward.
I would make a suggestion again to have a work session.
Yeah.
Have two or three, if you can't have a quorum, so.
Why
only
can't
two.
you? Sorry.
Yeah,
Because if you have a quorum, then you have to have minutes, you have to publicize the minutes, you have to be able to televise it to the public, you have to make notifications.
Don't
to
tell
it.
anyone I asked this. How many people are in a forum?
So for this commission, it is four makes a quorum, because you have 7 on the commission.
So that
There's gotta be a
means-
loophole.
So myself and councilperson Franklin do not count,
right.
so
You guys-
we don't count.
Oh, so you can come. And then with 4 other.
Oh, yeah, I can come. No, we can only have 3.
You're welcome for.
You can only have 3.
We only have 3.
In addition to y'all, to you and,
Councilperson Franklin and I do not count. We're not a member of the commission. We are
Oh,
just
oh, oh.
liaisons.
okay.
But the
Councilman
idea-
Franklin, he's the liaison to the council and I'm the liaison to the city.
There's something a bit odd to me about having a work session that we can't go to.
Yeah.
I got that from several people that I
Well,
talked to about
The
this.
whole idea of a work session is you put several members of your commission together on a group, right? And then you brainstorm up and come up with policy procedures. And then at the next meeting, you present those. And then you discuss those in a meeting where it's publicized, and then you can either
It's almost like a committee.
revise that again and go back or whatnot.
So if we use that system, then what we could do is have somebody on the, I feel like we need names for each of the things that we're discussing, right? So we need people on the, I'm forgetting all the names, right? But set up our guidelines, so we could do a
That would be
breakout
your
session on
guidelines and
that.
policies on how you want to move forward is the first one. I would recommend a work session for that.
And then we could do another on specifically on the parking issue related to high school kids.
Correct.
And then another one on the fun stuff, like making our city more walkable and
Correct.
safe.
Absolutely, Ann.
And I would
Okay.
think one would be sort of the purpose of this committee or this commission.
Yeah. Can you share this with everyone?
And I did with a couple of these guys, but yeah, I'll share this. Again, I brought this to the
Yes,
work.
yes, go
session.
ahead.
These are, I just pulled these off the web, other traffic advisory commissions, what they're doing. Some are pretty basic, some are very proactive in terms of some of the things they're involved in. So this is just a handful of them.
I've got my copy
You
here.
got yours. Would you like to see?
Oh, I haven't seen the
Please.
show.
This is the exciting stuff, because also we can be competitive with Kirkwood.
There
I'm
you
gonna
go.
pick Kirkwood, but we can be better than them, and look at how awesome their statement is compared to ours. Y'all, we gotta step it up.
All right, so
Okay.
we're getting, we're losing our focus here. But I like what you said about splitting this up. And I'm not all that convinced that we need a working meeting. We could just divvy up these activities and go home and gather again at the next meeting and put them together.
You would do a work session, come up with a policies and procedure, and then fine tune it, and then you would present it to be voted on.
Right,
At a regular meeting.
right.
So all the work can be done in a work session that doesn't require a full meeting with this televised and minutes and, everything, and agendas announced and all that stuff. And then you could compile it all and then say, this is the procedures, are we gonna vote on this? And then take a look.
I understand what you're saying, but there aren't that many of us that we're gonna get a committee of three for this and a committee of three for that and a committee of three for that. I think we might as well just say, Jerry could take care of the ones having to do with safety. I could try my hand at writing the one having to do with the students. Maybe Ann has something that you would like to draft. Clark, you may have something you'd like to draft.
Yeah.
And we could pull this together, assemble it, review the whole thing together, make any final fine tune it and approve it.
Chris, those proposals though are not all part of one document, right? So policies and procedures that we would use would be
Would be one
guidelines. And then-
guideline.
Yeah,
Yes, that would be
and
one.
then, high school parking would be our proposal for now. How do we use those guidelines to apply to this problem? And then how do we use those guidelines or other ideas to apply to safety and pedestrian, walkability?
Okay,
So in my mind, the first thing is we need our policy and procedures, and then we start stepping out from there.
all right.
I don't know if
Agreed.
everybody feels, yeah,
That is where I would recommend you head first.
right. So.
So would you be open, since you are the person who kind of knows the rules best?
I mean, I'll say that I think, looking at all the discussions that we've had, just to make sure I'm headed, happily do that, but just to make sure I'm headed in the right direction. That was one of the reasons I think the proposal I had was purely focused on safety, because I think that's a good place to hang our hat.
Right,
The parts about being fair and equitable is what we decide as a committee kind of in the discussion part. But as far as saying, automatically this request falls in that safety bucket, boom, yes, or doesn't, we need more discussion about being equitable and how we approach it.
Okay.
That's kind of why I was hanging a lot of it on safety. I don't know if there's another thing that we can kind of hang and it's not how we did come to our ultimate decision, but I think it's how we say, this is an easy yes, or this is gonna take discussion by our tech. And I don't know if there's something besides safety.
well, it sounds like the MUTCD does a lot for us.
Yes.
And so really what's we've kind of changed directional here a little bit. What I hear now is that we need a more clear understanding about how do we process requests
Right.
that come to
Yes.
us.
What are our benchmarks as
Yes.
a team?
Okay,
And we can use Ron's as an example,
Right.
right? there's, a thought, do we need a four-way stop sign
Mhm.
at this intersection? Safety. But so how do we go about evaluate? What's our process?
Right.
like
Right.
To evaluate that?
Okay, I like that. So now we're saying we need an overarching guideline for how we process requests.
And that's one. Then I like the idea of another thing we can put in our policies and procedures is our.
Our mission.
Our
sort of
state of the
mission.
person,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay,
I'd be happy to try to take a crack at that.
yeah, I think that's a great idea.
yes. And what
Yeah,
Anna's
I'm
talking,
kind of- I'm just snagging from theirs, but we could workshop it. Yeah.
See,
and what you were talking about, would that be a part of that first overarching guideline?
Well, I have something that,
Go ahead.
so remember when, oh gosh, I just lost her name. Jamie was here last week. One of the things we did was I joined as a liaison. We designated me a liaison to sustainability.
Yeah.
So Jamie and I, since that time, have met. This is probably a new business, I'm sorry. But she would like to form a very small joint committee, which I think you would be excellent for.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Where, just 2 or 3 people from each committee who meet to see, we have shared funding, we have shared goals of walkability and slowing traffic and all of those things. So that would be a
Yeah,
place where
love
that
that.
would fall under like a joint committee, subcommittee.
So, okay, I like that.
So
So is that gonna be a third bullet, third activity?
I don't think we have to do anything as our committee for that. We just have to designate those subcommittee members. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're
but,
correct.
yeah.
That's not something you would vote on.
And that's why I was gonna bring up a new business.
More than 3.
It can be more than
It
3.
cannot be
Oh,
more
that's a
than
good
3.
point. We
It
would have
cannot be more
four.
than 3.
Yeah.
It'd be a quorum.
Right.
Could be 3 of their group and 3 of our group.
Yeah.
Could be. Well, I don't know how big their group is.
Yeah, I don't either. You're right.
She said it would be 2 or 3 from their group.
Okay. All right, so are you open to taking that on?
Well, as the liaison, I think I would be on that subcommittee.
I'll
Okay.
join, yeah. for
Yes.
sure.
Like two if there's spot.
Okay, yeah.
There's your
There's
3.
there are 3,
Okay,
No more.
no more. And I think
3, what would you call that?
it is the
Subcommittee.
joint sustainability traffic commission subcommittee.
Okay.
I'll give them first.
joint
go.
sub-
I like that. That's good.
And their
Okay.
title, they probably said it during their meeting and called it something else.
All right,
And the
that's-
sustainability piece real quick means environmental or what?
It's a little bit of everything, but I think the part that they would share with us would be
Walkability.
walkability.
Bike lanes.
Bike lanes.
Okay,
That's what
okay.
we talked about.
Yeah.
Right. So much overlap with what we're hoping for.
Because
Okay.
I don't know, so the council, did some funding pots. David can correct my terminology, but we share a pot of funding with sustainability.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure as soon as they saw that, they were like, ooh, let's get on board with them so we can start spending that money. So,
Yes.
Okay, sounds great.
I'm sorry, that was so out of order. I was saving it for the end. Okay.
You gotta check on the ones for-
And it makes so much sense because, if there ever is a DEI commission too, there's some things that share there. And I think with staff, I think with planning and zone, the plan commission, I think there's some things that overlap. And for us to all work in these silos, I think is not doing the best.
Right.
Put forward.
What's the?
Well, it's a good idea.
The
DEI.
DEI.
Diversity, equity, inclusion.
I
So
remember that one, important one.
streets
Yeah.
fit into that.
Right.
Right.
For sure.
For sure they do.
Okay,
Yeah.
the one thing that we haven't talked about in these is what we started with, which was the school. So I guess I would take on writing. And I don't know what I'm writing.
I don't think we have to do anything with the school yet.
I don't think so.
Right, I would recommend that you think about this first. His first step is get your guidelines, policies, and what your statement is and how you're going to measure things.
Get that
And then
done.
once that's done, and approved and in place,
Okay.
and then we table this. The high school, it's not gonna be fixed in 2 weeks.
No,
Right.
Okay,
no,
so once that's in place, then you start attacking each individual ordinance of each individual street that you want to tackle, and then go that route with it.
okay.
And just, I mean, this is a similar process that we would use, and if we lay out publicly, this is how we're approaching everything, then it's very defensible when we say go after ordinance 62428, and hey, we have concerns about this existing ordinance because it doesn't really match the way that we've decided parking should be applied, equitably, so.
And just a reminder again, even though that is a recommendation you would make, that recommendation still gets written up and then goes to the council for a vote. And
Yeah.
if the council turns it down, then that issue dies, and if they approve it, then it goes in place.
So the more I think, ammo and leverage and backup we have.
And the more consistent
Right.
you have with the MUTCD, the more consistency you have with all the distances and the street lifts and all that stuff. I think that would give you more weight in your recommendations than just going into it willy-nilly blind.
So what I see is we have 3 activities going on. Robert, do you have a interest in participating in?
You know, I do, but I'm not gonna have the time to be able to do some of this other stuff. I love being involved in the higher level things and talking back and forth. But I really don't have the time to get involved in the little nitty-gritty stuff that you guys are doing. I apologize for that.
Oh,
That's fair.
No problem.
And I was gonna
A
think of
voice
that.
of reason is actually always helpful.
so Carrie, if you're open, I wouldn't mind working with you some on that
Sure.
first bullet,
Absolutely.
the overarching kind of how we do things.
Right.
Okay. Now, I think we got a little bit of a new direction, but I think that's good. I believe you had some new things that you wanted.
I
to
did,
bring to the
I have
table.
one new issue. I did send it out to you. It was an issue of an intersection, and
Yeah.
it was the intersection of
Wood and Westboro.
Lockwood and Westboro.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I am computer illiterate when it comes to this, so I have no idea
Google.
how to share my screen.
Down at the bottom. Green. Oh.
Okay, so let me.
Yep.
Share screen and. Attachment. There we go. Okay. So the complaint came in that this is an intersection that is violating 2 ordinances, which is in fact true. And I lost all my paperwork. Here it is.
I thought that was David Franklin Street there. wasn't it?
So if you take a look at the picture that I have up there for you. If you look slightly past the stop sign there is a crosswalk that goes there. Now, this street you're looking at here is Lockwood Court. And Westboro is just right to the left of it. And so we have a crosswalk with a stop sign, but if you look at the signage right here. It says no parking here to stop sign, which is only about an 8-foot section, okay? And then it has no parking, stopping, standing Monday through Friday to 7 a.m. going this way as well. And then I don't want to try to change pictures because I'll mess it all up. This sign right here, okay, the sign right here, you see where I'm circling?
Yeah.
That sign says no parking, standing, stopping Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and it has arrows going in both directions. And then all the way down here, this next sign is no stopping, standing, parking, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. pointing back this way towards the stop sign intersection.
So is it just bad signage or is there an ordinance?
I believe there's an ordinance for it. And it goes directly against our ordinance that says you can't park cars within an intersection or within so many feet of a crosswalk. And the only no parking is between here and the stop sign, but from past this stop sign all the way down to this one, on weekends and after 5 p.m., you can park all along here. Now, I believe, I don't know, my only assumption is that this was made this way for the preschool at Mary Queen of Peace. And then there was no parking issues after that when the kids were back out of school and at home. But the resident who wrote this in did highlight, though, that it is actually a contradiction to our ordinance of the restrictions, no parking within an intersection or on a crosswalk or an intersection with 20 feet of a crosswalk. And so that is the signage is allowing for parking, which is violating our own ordinance.
Okay.
And I think there was a note in there where she said,
Yes, because I did forward it to you.
yeah, people are parking outside of those hours in the intersection and kids use that crosswalk to go to the playground. So outside of the 7 to 5.
Right.
I think she had a safety concern. Boom, boom, safety.
I believe it is one same.
So she's wanting us to, or I guess, recommend no parking all the time, right? Is the request?
Well, I think we would do no parking in the intersection and within 20 feet of the crosswalk. The only problem is the impact then would see that the no parking, no stopping, standing is during the day anyways, but I'm not quite sure. I said, I don't know when this ordinance was put in place and I don't know how long or what the reasoning was behind it.
Is it worth asking the church if that's the preschool pickup drop off?
It can't be Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Literally can't.
So no,
Oh, yeah.
no stopping, parking, standing.
Or if they can still let a rolling queue and just get away with it?
Yeah.
What is stopping and
Yeah.
standing in addition to no parking? Is it?
That's, I think, for unloading and loading. Like you said, you stop, kid opens the door, jumps out, you're stopping, you're not parking.
But do you guys enforce it? I mean, is there an officer there regularly?
No.
Okay.
And
so
I did pull crash statistics for this particular intersection and we have zero data on any type of auto crash for 5 years back. I only looked 5 years back.
I'm sorry, I haven't read it. What is her specific ask?
That's what I was trying to figure out.
Basically that the signage is in violation of our current ordinances.
Okay.
And that it needs to be changed, fixed.
She says it's a dangerous situation. Yeah,
Mhm.
but it doesn't say exactly what she's wanting us to do. I think she's wanting no parking outside of that 7 to 5 as well.
Yeah, I think she just wants us to look at this intersection and then see what we can do to rectify that, because it is confusing to me.
Okay. So, yeah, so in my mind, I want to understand what should we do? So it's not real obvious to me.
I would propose we follow the other ordinance, which is no parking within 20 feet of a crosswalk
Correct. And no parking in an intersection.
and no parking within an intersection at any time. And I would propose that we recommend that,
Change the signage.
right?
Okay. They don't have to be signed. That doesn't have to be signed, but we could put signs up because we do have that ordinance. We have a blanket ordinance that covers all intersections and all crosswalks.
Well, if no signage change, then we'd be asking for enforcement for some period of time for people parked there during.
Yeah, so what we would generally do, if we change the signage, then we would do a couple-week period of an educational period type thing. And then after that, we would go into full enforcement. So let me do this for you guys on this one here. Now that you've all seen these pictures, let me have my traffic sergeant pull the ordinance up that specifically relates to the signage that is there with this no parking standing. And the no stop sign, and then I will get that all to you. And then we can reevaluate and go, because I don't know if we would have to rescind an ordinance if there's one in
Right.
place.
Right.
And then just go with the current ordinances we have on the book, the quote blanket ordinances that would cover that, where we could just have Public Works erect new signs, no parking.
Yeah.
And in between, 20 feet from this side of the crosswalk to this side of the intersection.
I think
Well, how is that signed? Because it doesn't say within 20 feet of the crosswalk.
It says no parking here to,
So put the sign 20 feet from the crosswalk.
and we just put the sign, erect the signs 20 feet from the crosswalk.
so. Wouldn't you just move the bottom sign, take off the top sign?
But it depends on, what depends on what the language of the current ordinance is written as.
Here, I think it's in here. North side of Lockwood Court, just east of the existing passenger loading and unloading zone. So I think one of the far signs is a loading and unloading zone. A distance of 180 feet, which is just east of the driveway at 661 Lockwood. So just east of where we're seeing that sign. I think I looked it up earlier for the record, and it's I think that sign we're seeing is at the beginning of 2 driveways that go back to back. So you don't really park in front of those anyway. So I don't know if the 20 feet would fall in the middle. of those
Are you talking the
driveways.
no parking here sign right here
Yes,
we're looking at?
yeah.
The driveway for that is about
I think-
right there.
Yeah, I think, and there's 2 of them next to each other. So
Yes.
Theirs and their neighbors. So I'm wondering if the 20 feet falls within those driveways.
Well, that's probably the no parking here to stop sign because it would then be within the intersection.
Right.
Because remember, Westboro's right here. To the left.
And that's the Methodist church, right, that we're looking at?
Very Queen of Peace, Very Queen of Peace.
No, yeah.
There.
Yeah, it is the Methodist on the corner and Mary Queen of Peace
Is on the
behind
other
us.
side of it.
Yeah.
Because we're looking right here at this stop sign, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, okay.
So I'm wondering, do you guys have an issue, Captain Perks, usually with confusion about that being in an intersection? You know, like if I'm parked, you know, I don't know, on the other side of that stop sign, it doesn't seem like you're in an intersection because it's a freeway. I'm just curious in general if that's.
There are plenty of other streets that are T intersections like that, that there's parking on this side over here because you're not in the intersection.
Okay, but this you'd be in the intersection because of the crosswalk.
The crosswalk is the issue with this one.
Okay.
Right? That's-
Yeah,
it's-
I mean, I feel like we should have a sign that's like no parking here to crosswalk. But I don't know if those signs exist. But that
we could make signs.
Yeah, that seems like that would make sense. No parking here to crosswalk.
Same thing.
But then there was the ordinance that I did pull it up,
Yeah.
you did too, though, it's a no loading zone. So
Yeah, there's no
I
loading
think they
zone.
were
at the-
restricting the loading drop off for the preschool, is what I think originally what it's designed for. Because I believe it probably created congestion there with the intersection and the stop signs and the congestion and all that.
But the problem is people are parking there outside of hours, so.
Right. Which right now is unenforceable because unless they're parking just right there, the no parking here to stop sign. If they're
Yeah.
parked beyond that, and it's after 5 PM or on the weekends, we can't enforce anything.
Okay, because it's, even though it's.
Yeah.
It's technically, I guess, in an intersection, but it doesn't look like it.
Right.
So how do we leave this? You said you were gonna take a look at it?
Yeah, I'll make my traffic sergeant and I we'll take a look at this. We'll pull the ordinances up again and pull up some other stuff, I think, about current ordinances we have in place and what could be a viable solution for this one. Because I think I kind of like the no parking
Here to cross.
here to crosswalk and no parking, that change that sign, no parking here to crosswalk,
Going the other
Period.
way.
going the other way. And then leave the other sign up there
Right,
with a no parking here Monday through Friday, 5 to P, and then change it, which means we'd have to amend and change the current ordinance to the location of the, we don't move this sign here down to the next sign on the other side of the crosswalk.
Okay.
And that would only maybe 40 feet, but it would still say no parking for that 40 feet during Monday through Friday.
but it would keep people out of that intersection.
It would keep people out of the intersection, but we'll do some more work on that and then we'll pull it up. So.
Okay.
It's confusing as all get out.
This is what happens right over 100 years of people making requests for
Yeah.
no parking.
That
So
was-
we can hold this up as an example of why we're reviewing ordinances on our own.
I can't figure out why the kids are crossing the street for a playground there.
The playground's on the,
I think she's saying it's at Mary Queen of Peace.
yeah, the playground's on Mary Queen Peace.
Yeah.
It's on-
They're using
Oh, they
that.
get to go use their.
So
So
there's
I
a-
guess kids coming from the residential area crossing. to go
Are
to the
crossing
playground.
to go to the
Yeah.
playground.
there's
I
like
get it.
cut through, there's a sidewalk. that
There is a
goes all the
sidewalk that
way.
goes through the fence and everything right into the
Yeah.
playground.
Okay.
There it is.
Okay.
All right.
You don't have any other,
Nope, that was the only one.
I want to follow up for a minute on Ron's suggestion. Would anybody have an objection if I took a little time on my own and visited his neighborhood and knocked on some doors and
Go ahead.
talked to a few people? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll take that one.
I would like to see a copy of that letter. I didn't see.
Where is that letter?
That needs to be part of the minutes.
Right.
We passed it that way.
Ron's letter?
We passed it that way.
Yeah, I know.
Nope, I think you
Oh,
might have
I
it.
have it?
You might. You better double check.
I let
You read it.
We don't want to lose Ron's letter.
No.
I signed it. So that's the one you wasn't. It has today based.
There it is.
Aha.
Yep, got it.
Real quick, I will burn some copies.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
See how they achieve it. I'm definitely finding the time to be like, I'm gonna take a copy and.
I feel like we're
got
getting
some
our
done.
wheels turning,
we
yeah.
got- It was good.
Yeah.
It was a good conversation.
No, I think it's, I mean, we're addressing things as they're coming in at the same time as trying to get ourselves
So
more organized, so.
sometime in the next couple of weeks, you and I should probably sit down together.
Yep.
And I will make myself just a laundry list of issues that I want to include in this new guideline that we're talking about.
Okay,
Things I want to make sure we cover,
okay,
and then we can talk about how to organize it.
okay.
Okay.
Just make sure we're only talking about policies.
Yeah.
Yeah, like how we're gonna do
Well,
stuff,
more,
not what.
more like, yeah, well, when an issue comes forward, here's what we do with it.
Yes, yes,
Now, Carrie, where can I find the copy of this MUTC? Is it online?
it's online.
I
You just
figured it would be.
Just
but I
Google
just-
MUTCD and it's free online.
And it's searchable, I'm sure.
It's searchable. No, you're fine. So I actually have it pulled up because I was on there earlier today. So you just Google MUTCD and then you'll click through, but eventually you can just click on current edition and it's a PDF, but it's searchable.
Sign it,
It's
and you can
hot
go
linked.
through it.
Yeah.
Just for my own-
Will you sign this?
No, it's,
I want your autograph.
and it's, yeah, it's industry standard.
Thank you, sir.
It's been around for 100 years.
There you
Kind
go.
of like a building code, that Webster Road,
Yeah.
follows the regular things.
Right.
And we have.
It is thick and a lot of information.
Yes.
But good information.
Yes.
It is good. In a lot of cases, it's should, shall, so recommendations or absolutes. So there's a little bit of,
The previous iteration of this committee I was on, that was virtually for a while, for a couple of years, we met once a quarter. And then it kind of like, we didn't meet for 3 years.
Yes.
Right.
which one was it?
The new committee is
Committee.
kind of reiterated.
This, yeah,
And basically, all it was is somebody wanted to put a stop sign in front of their house. That's all we ever talked about.
Yeah,
Every meeting was 2 or 3
Same
people
thing.
wanting a stop sign.
yeah.
And I know we talked about the MUTCD and everything, and it didn't recommend it, and 99% of the time we said no. And that was kind of what all.
That was the
That
one.
was it. And obviously, I think it's a good idea to expand what we're trying to do, and it's what we're trying to do here is really good. I apologize for not being able to be this involved as much in the nitty gritty stuff, but I really like the way this is leading where it's going.
Yeah.
So we've covered everything that I know of. Does anyone have anything to bring up?
I would like to request that we try to set a monthly date and time.
Amen.
So that, and we can always cancel them if they're unnecessary, but,
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so I,
it is hard to set them up.
yeah.
It's better to set them up in advance.
Do you know, happen to know if like this time and place is open on a monthly basis or like
Yes.
Are you talking
5:30
for
on
the
Monday?
Full meeting, or are you talking for the individual?
For the full meeting, just a recurring monthly,
Okay, 'cause those would have to be, I mean, you're doing a little sub.
Right.
Right.
You don't have to schedule them, you can schedule them at the library. or
right,
Right.
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 So,
and so if you do a full meeting, every time you have to have an agenda.
Right.
And you would have to get that to me prior to, it has to be within 24 hours of the meeting, so I can get it published.
Got it.
And then if we do a set time type thing, I could set it up, we would just.
So we could do, this today is actually the third Monday, but we could do the second Monday of every month. If you want. Or anybody have?
Mondays are good.
Mondays are good.
Yeah, but it works for me. So the second Monday of every month.
yeah, room has to be available.
The
I'm
room
just gonna
has to be
say-
available, so I could say that we will do that. If we can be flexible on time, maybe.
Yeah.
I will try to set them at 5:30. I think the 5:30 to 6:30 hour is a good time. But if the room's not available and we have a new program where now we can see when a room is available and whatnot, so I can be able
Nice.
to reserve the rooms as needed. But if the time flexes, I'll send an email out and say, hey, I couldn't get the room for this time, but maybe I can,
Yeah.
7 o'clock or so, if everybody's available.
Perfect.
Okay.
Second Monday,
So that puts us at September 12th for the next one, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Or no? Yes, yeah.
That would be this, yes.
Now, unfortunately, I will be out of town.
do we get a second, who's this, a second chair? Is that you, Karen? Okay.
Yeah.
So then that you would have to put an agenda together for me, any topics or ideas.
So we-
And then
Second Mondays?
Second
Monday,
Mondays. Yeah.
If it's gonna be Mondays, you have to have an agenda then on
Friday.
Friday.
Yeah.
Right.
not 24 hours.
Do
Right.
we have like a template agenda that's flexible?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can send it to you.
That's what I sent Chris for that.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Good.
I did, so that way he could come up and start doing that.
I only have one other question, and maybe there's not an answer, but is there ordinance about parking in a bike lane?
Good question.
Good question, and I don't have an answer for you. I will find out.
What I was told when they put the new bike lanes on Lockwood was that since there wasn't signage, people can park there, and that just doesn't make sense to me.
And I'm seeing those new logos everywhere. In fact, they were putting them on Edgar today.
The bike, little bike.
But
shares.
those are sort of shared. This is a designated bike lane.
You're right, Bob, you're saying they're putting, I see those little logos on more and more streets.
Uh-huh.
Mara Perry would know, city planner.
Yeah, sure.
You asked her, she didn't know. That's a bummer.
And just off, assumption here, which you shouldn't assume anything, but I would tell you that if there's no signage there, then parking would be legal.
Right, and I just don't get that,
No,
but.
that's
And I
crazy.
think it would,
Having bike.
And what I was told, and this was by the police, was that the signage was gonna come and then they were not gonna be able to park there. But I don't know what that really, is that no parking in a bike lane? I mean, it seems like it should just be an ordinance. If there's a designated bike lane.
I
And the
agree.
worst offender, I mean, there's two big offenders. Right by the railroad tracks, I mean, the overpass sort of around the corner. You know, one of them is a airport police car that's always parked there. So you watch, because there's a lot of bikers. go
Oh, I
there.
know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
I saw that car.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah.
always parked in the bike,
I think
and
he
he's got
lives
5
there.
cars.
Yeah.
one question that I would ask on that is that I understand it's a bike lane, but it's a parking lane as well. If a bicyclist is on the roadway and they take the lane, they are considered a vehicle on the roadway. So they
Right, but this
can
is a
take-
designated separated bike lane,
lane.
striped.
I know what you're talking about. It's on West Lockwood.
The
right,
new
that I
one.
know
Because
exactly
on
what
the,
you're talking about.
on the east side, there's a
Parking
parking
lane, then the
lane
bike
as well.
lane, but on the west side, there's only a bike lane.
Yeah.
and a lane. And they, what I was told was when it was 2 driving lanes, they could park there too.
Correct. I know that for a fact, correct.
Which surprised me as well, because it seemed like it was a road.
Well, it's the same thing in a subdivision or in a thing where there's no designated stripage and it's no signage that says you can't park there, it becomes a parking lane.
Right.
So.
So, oh, go ahead.
No, yours is on the same topic. I was gonna change.
I was just gonna say, can we draft one up? What if we draft?
I
one
know,
up
I mean,
And
we should-
submit it for
it-
consideration.
Exactly. I mean, I think it should be part of the overall ordinance. I mean, personally.
Yeah. My question has to do with, can we review what our homework is? Or else I'll forget. I have to write it down. I'm a
The only
teacher.
thing-
It's what you do at the end of class, right? So what are our action steps between now and next time?
Okay, so I'm gonna go knock on some doors in Ron's neighborhood. Harriet,
Ron sent me.
yeah, you know that guy,
You might need an orange vest.
I have one, I have one.
I think you should wear it.
Harry and I are gonna look at an overarching guideline. Clark is gonna prepare something on the mission statement.
Do you wanna?
Then the joint subcommittee, I believe you two are gonna take that on.
Okay.
Email,
me.
yeah, and let
And-
Amy know that the 3 of us are involved.
Okay,
That's all I have.
okay.
Yeah.
And
Oh, and you were gonna,
I'm gonna follow up on the,
on the,
this one, which by the way, let me stop sharing my screen. See, I forget about this stuff. Back to that.
When we had students partly on Zoom and partly in the class, you know, how you forgot to let
Oh.
Franklin in. I would
Oh.
students in and they would text someone in the class and
He
be
sent
like.
me an email, my email dinged, and I'm like, oh, it's Councilman Franklin. I'm like, oh,
You're really important. I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Ron, did you have something else you wanted to say?
Yeah, very quickly, if you don't mind. You're this captain, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Couple of things I'm gonna address to you. You may not know the answers to either. That's okay.
Let me take notes.
One is, I think I heard you say, there's no parking within 20 feet of a crosswalk.
Correct.
I know a place where it's too close. On South Rock Hill by Southwest Park. They widened the driveway coming out of the park and put a crosswalk without moving back the designated parking. They took out the sign, but it's striped as if you can park right up next to the crosswalk. So someone in Public Works, I think, needs to get out their can of paint and move that.
We maybe could do that when
Well, I
he's
would
knocking
do it
on
if you
doors.
don't need the paint.
Right,
Can
that's the
be
one
yellow
thing
paint.
that Ron is, the ordinance is in place, so that we don't even have to do anything. That's just a work order to Public Works to move the signage.
But right now,
Striping.
the way it's striped,
Yeah.
people will park right almost on top of
Right.
that crosswalk.
And that's,
And the other one, maybe, I think it might be state, because it's where 44 and Elm intersect. If you're going outbound on 44, that's westbound on 44, and exit at Elm, you come down that ramp, and there's 3 lanes. One is a right turn yield, which takes you north on Elm. And then there are 2 lanes, which bring you right up to Elm. And there's 2 traffic lights overhead, both of which are designated for left turns on the southbound Elm. Okay. If you're inbound on 44, you're eastbound on 44, as you come off and exit to Elm, you have the same situation. You have a right turn lane with a yield. And as you come down, there's 2 lanes, which both have lights for left turns. Problem is, on the westbound, the outbound, when you go down to the right lane of the 2 through lanes, it's striped for no traffic. So if you go there, are you, the light says it's okay to go this way, the stripes say it's not.
Wait, which section?
I need to talk westbound, exiting off.
West,
And I
Westbound
know
exiting
exactly
off.
what you're talking about, and unfortunately, the city of Webster Groves has no control over that intersection and that striping.
No,
That is the
they-
state of Missouri.
that's MoDOT's.
MoDOT's.
you have a,
I'm confused.
A phone number?
What city Whips Groves do anything like take action against somebody who.
I was asking you.
Nope,
So do you have any more influence than I do talking to the state about their striping? I don't know. No.
So
It was worth a try.
I'm
Nope.
confused.
And I'm also thinking that,
exiting westbound 44,
So
exiting
we
on
have a
that.
single left turn lane.
Single left
but
turn
the
lane.
signals overhead say there are 2.
No, there's 2 signals overhead because that's a requirement for.
Okay.
For
leads
single
someone-
lane.
Which leads someone coming down that hill to think there's 2
Right.
lanes where they can turn left.
Right.
And until they get there, and if there's snow on the ground, they don't even see the stripe.
So they're treating it as a double left-hand turn lane.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's not really. a double
So what if they
left-hand
don't
lane
do
either,
that?
But there's a light there to allow that. Looks like it.
Yeah, but I mean, there's only a single lane all the way down that ramp
The
straight.
ramp's a single lane until you get down to the very end where it's striped off.
It's,
And
yeah.
I can't remember that ever being a double left turn lane ever.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
Make
what
the
I'm saying,
median bigger?
someone new to the area, but they don't look down, they look up.
Good. For the record, though, this
Someone down the
starting,
hill, they look up and they see 2 lights for turning left.
they're gonna redesign this intersection starting
Good.
this year, next fall. It'll be 2025. I don't think it'll go into construction until 2026
Who's they,
or
the state?
7. The
The
state.
state owns that entire intersection,
Yeah.
all the lights, everything.
We'll get some new plans for our grow lights.
Well, that's Webster's. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
How
Yeah.
about the new reindeer?
Yeah, some new reindeer. I love
Do
it.
I have a motion to,
Motion to
motion to adjourn.
Oh.
Got it, second?
Second.
okay,
All right. Thank you, Cal.
thanks, everybody.
All opposed?
Yeah, all those.
Sorry for the somewhat discombobulated.
No, it's
meeting.
good. A lot of energy.
We covered some.